All right, we are on. I always read that wrong. We're on the air. Hey, welcome to another episode of the App Business Podcast. Except this one's different. This is our weekly live. So we're on a Google Hangout right now live. We've got a page, abpweekly.com, and we've got a little chat thing below the live video. In fact, we should tell the guys to refresh their screens if they don't see us yet. And if you want to join us, you can check us out every Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. What is it? 4 p.m. Munich,
Yes, that's
9
right.
a.m. Bogota. Probably, what is it, like, 11 p.m. New Zealand time.
hmm
Yeah. So usually we use this time for a quick review of the week, and it's just fun to do something live and without like having to hit a certain topic or a specific topic. And so we'll use this time to review the week, look at the week ahead, and then there's all sorts of stuff in the news this week, and then we've got some Q&As that we'll get to, and then there's live Q&As too. So um, I've got my coffee. I'm ready for 2 hours, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm open. I'm open to whatever the listeners bring in questions, etc. But usually we don't hit 2 hours.
Yeah.
Let's
Of
see.
course, I say that, and then our website is down, and so it's like we have a whole list of things to do after this. So maybe we won't go 2 hours.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
start with
so
that. So sorry about being
yeah.
down yesterday. Some plugin on WordPress, you know, whatever. It's horrible, but yeah, I think we're mainly back online, but there's still some glitches and things, but yeah, we're getting there. Bear with us. Hey, Chris, I can't hear you if you're talking right now.
Yeah, there's a ambulance going by, so I did the mute.
Ah,
Apparently, I deleted our theme somehow. It's best just to keep me out of WordPress. Um, but yeah, we'll get it all back. At least you can see the episodes now. So we were down for a day. We apologize for that. In fact, guys were like sharing, "Hey, I was on an interview on the App Business Podcast," and they have a link, and then we've got like a 404 page. So
hmm
um, try to avoid that. David hates WordPress, hates it.
Yeah,
So we'll
now
get
I
to a
do.
better solution there. You do, right? That's fair, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it was great for blogging and when it came out, but right now it's like it's just too big and just too messy and yeah, but really don't have something that could replace it right now, so it's hard, but yeah,
Okay. So this isn't the WordPress.
the WordPress podcast.
Yeah. So let's dig into, well, first of all, the week. Oh, I don't think I told you this, David. We're going to start doing a newsletter every Monday, and I'll show you the format that we've been trading. Hazel and I have been trading, but I think at least it will give us a chance to connect with people who are on the email list, and then it should be a really cool tool for sharing what some of our previous guests are up to, what some of our future guests are up to, like our target guests, kind of like share the top 3 or 4 articles that we've been talking about and looking at. So almost like how Dave Verwer and his, what's the name of his newsletter? Well, he has one weekly,
iOS
and
Stuff Weekly.
yeah, iOS Dev Weekly, and he just goes and gets maybe 10, 15 links that he's
hmm
read and think are cool. We'll do that, except we'll do 2 or 3, and that way, when you hear the podcast that we recorded on this subject the next week or so, you'll already have read the article or already know what we're kind of talking about. You might already know about this without us having to send you the links, but I would just feel it's another way to kind of like connect with everyone and share kind of some of the information that we're finding in our research for the podcast. Um, Sound good,
And
David?
yeah, that sounds great. I mean,
Okay.
I think we've talked about this a couple of months ago even, and then
hmm
kind of didn't do it. But I think it's a great way to connect in yet another way with the community and share what we are looking at. I mean, it's not guaranteed that we're doing an episode on everything that appears in the newsletter, right?
hmm
Sometimes it's just like, hey, this article was interesting, but might not make the podcast.
Right.
Um, yeah, but it's definitely, I think it should be something that's worth your time. So yeah. How do you subscribe to that, Chris?
You join the mailing list, and I'll add that to our Facebook group. That way, everyone in the Facebook group can make sure that they get the newsletter. And then there should be a way to subscribe. In fact, there is a way to subscribe right now on the Even Broken website. But when we do the backup, there'll be a couple ways to subscribe. There's like 3 different pop-ups that say join the mailing list or get newsletter or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good.
Um,
So,
let's do a quick recap of the week, yeah?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
So
So,
Monday was a really cool one because we got a lot of feedback from the guys who wrote the report. So we called it Struggling Developers, but it was all about Vision Mobile's. They do a quarterly report where they poll a bunch of developers, like thousands of developers, and then based on all the answers from the developers, they pull together this report. And I think they're Vision Mobile, but they also have a blog and a website at developereconomics.com. And so we kind of nerded out on the report, talking about how we didn't think that the reason a lot of apps were struggling so much was because the market wasn't there. What do you remember the dynamic that we were kind of arguing for or against, David?
yeah, basically, it was kind of the thesis that uh, from this report that a lot of developers are struggling and that the market is not allowing many developers to make a real living on the app stores. And I was arguing that it's not the market that's so broken, it's more like the hobbyists, amateur developers who don't take it as a real business, don't take it seriously,
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
don't apply the right strategies and tactics to really create something of business value.
right.
And I think we got some disagreement there from the
Yeah,
authors. But again, I mean that's so awesome when you have a podcast like this. Um, I'm still amazed by these people reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, I actually listened to this episode, and
and you got
I'm
it
the
wrong. You got
author
it
of
all the
this
way
report."
wrong. Yeah,
Well, it didn't say that actually. I think it was very fair and polite, and also I'm looking forward to having these guys or just Mark, I don't know who's going to join the podcast, but having them on for another episode where they can explain what they think the situation is, and we can have a real discussion. I think that's all what the podcast is about, having good discussions in the community.
yeah. One thing that for sure came out of Mark kind of Mark, and I think it was Moda contacting us and saying, hey, let's clarify the revenue numbers and let's talk about what our position was and all this kind of stuff, which was really cool. It's the second or third time someone's reached out to us after us covering them to like comment. But one thing that came out of it was David and I recognized that we don't really talk about other business models as related to mobile, yet David and I are involved in other business models related to mobile. We just seem to talk about a lot. It's not like we're talking about it specifically, but we seem to imply that we're talking about business, consumer apps, games, consumer utility apps, other types of apps, but all consumer focused. And it's a little, it kind of shone a light on, hey, hold on, we don't even believe that that's the best route because
Yes.
while I've got BGB, look at Macaroon Mania. As soon as we decided, hey, David, come join us on Opt-in Mobile, Macaroon Mania went right to the back burner because we think there's
Yeah,
more opportunity in the
that's right.
business-to-business stuff, And just to clarify what that is, we're making money by charging people to use the framework that we're developing, which is that persona framework. Opt-in Mobile is the company. I will clean that up at some point. But the idea is that people who are doing inbound marketing campaigns, whether they're large brands or marketing departments, or they're like content marketers, building email lists is super big. That's kind of like the opt-in, hey, tell me more about your stuff. It's like raising your hand saying, yes, I'm interested. We're enabling that in mobile, and we're kind of one of the first, I think we're the first company to really focus on, connecting with people via email through your mobile device. And we're not making money by ads or in-app purchases or any retention mechanics, any traditional retention mechanics. It's a subscription service that
Yeah.
these brands pay us. So that's clearly a mobile app making money in mobile, but it's business to business, and it changes the whole conversation. So I think we're going to try to challenge ourselves to talk more about that kind of stuff.
The second episode, episode 69 on semantic versioning,
Oh
that was
yeah.
where, I nerded out on my geeky developer version stuff. But I was very surprised, positively surprised by the response we got on the Facebook group. A couple of people were saying that they really liked that. That was a helpful piece of information to them, and that they have never heard about it. And I remember someone saying, I think it was Kaylee saying, she wouldn't have ever thought about searching for that, or even what to look for. And that's the kind of episodes that I really like, where I can share something with people, give them some insight that you wouldn't have otherwise even known how to find, or know how to that it even existed. Yeah.
I'm with a lot of the listeners where I'm sitting here going, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, like taking notes. Or it was actually the reason that we thought to talk about that is because David doesn't know what I don't know, and I think I'm a fairly good representation of people who aren't technical folks out there making mobile apps or getting involved in like technical businesses in general. And so David's like, oh, you don't know what this is? Oh, let's talk about this. And so anytime it's like a light switching on for me or I'm learning something, we figure that's a probably pretty good
Hmm.
subject for the podcast. So that was a good one. Yeah, and I think it's kind of clear now that between the future tech stuff and the more nerdy, as we say, aspects of app development, even if you're not a developer, it's really important to know this stuff. And I kind of like said a speech on that episode about that. But I really enjoy that kind of stuff. Even if I'm never going to lead the charge in saying, hey, we need to have this type of versioning or something, because you're going to do it. The fact that I understand what's going on and understand, like can speak the languages, I like that. I want to be able to speak the language. I don't want to be a big dummy, with money and marketing skills. I want to understand what we're doing, So I like those episodes.
Yeah, and maybe you do want to like share with the MBA program that I'm going to be doing some videos there as well.
Yeah, so I shared that on the webinar that was hosted Wednesday. It'll be the last webinar I do for a while. Um, but yeah, we got David to join the App Business MBA because just what we're talking about, even though it's not a program for doing everything yourself and learning how to code. It's not trying to replace like Ray Wunderlich's site where you learn how to code, or it's not one of these Udemy courses where you learn how to build apps yourself. That's not the idea. But there is a certain level, like a foundation of understanding that even non-technical founders should have with their mobile app business. And it includes things like running the latest build in Xcode in your iOS simulator, and how to manage your iOS simulator, working with Git via GitHub, just a lot of those things. So we came up with 10 topics right from the start, and David's going to record some of those tutorials. So the idea is that, I mean, like I really am interested in this App Business MBA because it's exactly what I needed a couple years ago. And so it's kind of becoming something like, hey, what else can we add? What else can we add? And so having David come on and do some of that kind of stuff where it's like the more technical facing presentations or tutorials, I think is really going to add a little bit more to the MBA.
Hmm. And we
Yeah.
keep saying like what we needed like a couple of years ago, but really that's just a part of it. So um, yeah, sorry to take you as an example there, but for you it's gonna be like an SOP video with, okay, how do I use Git and GitHub in that regard, and these kinds of things. So there's even things that you can learn from those videos. And heck, there's a lot of things I can learn from your videos right now, not just 2 years ago. So
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the video tutorial sections I'm working on right now is retention, and I know a good deal. Like I could rattle off 10 retention triggers right now and different strategies and stuff, but in order to have like the latest, greatest, I have to go research and make sure I'm including like the latest thoughts and all this stuff. And so it's like a learning experience for me, even though I have a really good handle. So questions have come up like, is this for beginners or is this for advanced people? I think everyone's all over the place where someone could be really good with ASO and not have any knowledge of gamification, or be really good with one kind of monetization and not have any idea of how to do the other kind of monetization, another kind of monetization. So I think it's really going to be like from zero, here's what retention impacts, here's how you track it, here's the tools in your toolbox, etc. I think it's as I build this out, it's clearly for beginners, but it's also for people who are so busy pumping out apps that they haven't stopped to learn some of the other tools that they just need to learn.
Yep.
And then again, with having 100 apps or so, or I've sold some, so publishing 100 apps or so, you get, for people who are publishing one app a quarter and it's one big app, you just don't get the same amount of learning. You get like a different kind of learning. So it's like if you've had the same girlfriend for 2 years, you know certain things about having a girlfriend for 2 years, but it's not the same learning as someone who's been dating a bunch of girls for 2 years. Just like the guy who's been dating a bunch of girls for 2 years doesn't have the same understanding as the guy who had one girlfriend, right? So it's kind of like that with apps, and I'm hoping we have a good coverage of all that kind of stuff. So I really like this MBA thing. It's taken me way too long to get it out there, but I'm stoked you're involved, and we've got a bunch of people who have already prepaid before even seeing anything, and I think it's going to be really cool.
Okay, let's cover episode 17, then we'll take questions. So anyone in the chat with questions, now is the time to ask them while we cover episode 70. So that was interview with Dann Berg.
This is the one. This is the one where I was talking last week on the weekly, saying, I feel like I'm doing too much, and it took away from this interview because I could have asked Dan for an hour of things like how to get coverage for your app and how to submit, how to develop relationships, and we touched a little bit of that, but I just wasn't on my game, and I think it showed. I don't know if the listeners could tell, but I could definitely tell that I didn't get what I wanted to get out of that interview. We'll have Dan back, I hope. And Dan seemed to have a good time. So it wasn't something like it was awkward or bad. It was just.
It certainly wasn't Dan's fault, but we can. We'll see. I'd be really curious what the listeners think of this interview. If they think that it could have been better, if they like it or whatever it is, and also if we can have Dan back on in a couple of months or so. I think it's also just a matter of your power and your motivation of the day and all that kind of stuff. Where sometimes you just can't influence it. Sometimes you have a better day and then you have a not so good day.
Yeah,
and, it's part of doing 3 podcasts a week, I guess.
Let me ask you this: when we do interviews, are you trying to do like Howard Stern / professional interview style, where you're trying to like show the best side and get their personality out? Like they say, like the best interview lets the interviewee kind of run it, and the interviewer's in the background. I don't do it like that, but is that kind of how you're thinking of it, or do you just kind of roll with it?
Honestly, I don't. I think I haven't really thought about it. Like it's what I'm trying to do on the podcast, be it with you or with a guest, is just like have a real conversation and have people listen in on that conversation. And maybe that's not the best way to do it. Like maybe you could get more value out of it if you had like a really professional interview kind of technique. But I think if I try to do that, then it'd be bad because I am not skilled in that. And so I think doing something that you can do easily because it's natural is something that you can do better if you're not that skilled, maybe.
The way I kind of approach it is, if someone has a specific skill set, I want to get as much out of them as possible, so that that way the community can hear from them, from the expert, off script. Like when we had Tim Ogilvy from Think Gaming, we like peppered him with, okay, if you had a bunch of money, if you had $100,000 to invest in an app, what would you do? And what are the top monetizing app styles? And all these kinds of things that maybe he wasn't super Yeah, our chat's full. Sorry, guys. You know what? I have a paid chat that I'm using for the MBA, so we'll change that for next week. We hit our new record with most people on the chat at
Chat's
once.
full. God damn
Um,
it.
yeah, but anyways, like it's nice when we had Gab on. It went from talking about what he was working on to what about Google and how about this and what do you think about that and what about the changes. So I really just like to pepper them with questions and have them like try to add some real value during the interview, as opposed to like some soft let's talk about what you're working on type of thing. Um, it seems like people are up for that. I just curious what your perspective was on that.
Um,
Sounds like you don't have one. Sounds like you just say, "Yeah, let's roll with it. Let's have a real conversation to see what happens," right?
I think that's it. Yeah, because as I said, maybe especially for me, like, speaking in a foreign language, you probably don't try to do something that you're not really um, comfortable with or that you're not very used to, right? You're trying to do something that sounds natural and that people can connect with.
Hmm.
Okay. So Mark's saying he really enjoyed that episode with Dan. I'm really glad about that. I think that's great. Um, Nonetheless, we also really appreciate if you tell us that an episode sucked or something like that. It just helps us, you know, create better episodes. Um,
Ready
okay.
to dig into some questions?
Excuse me?
Yeah, ready for some questions?
Yeah, let's do some questions. Let's take some questions. So let's start. I don't know if we have something in the chat yet. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen any. So now it's time for questions, guys. Keep them coming. But we can start with something from the Facebook group, which I found interesting. Ryan was asking where you could get some um, templates for legal contracts and these kinds of things for a joint venture if you're living in different countries,
Hmm.
specifically Germany and the USA, which is kind of funny because you're from the US and I'm German, so kind of fit our situation. And I think, if you're on the Facebook group and already read this, I apologize if this is little bit repetitive, but I think it's worth sharing on the podcast because it kind of reflects our um, interpretation of um, non-disclosure agreements and all these kind of legal agreements,
Yeah.
where you have to really consider the amount of work you put in these legal agreements compared to how effective you can actually enforce them if you needed to. And in my opinion, especially across borders, across continents, people that are very mobile and flexible, like all those location dependent people are, it's not very realistic that with a very limited budget that you might have and no legal expertise of your own, you could actually enforce a contract across across borders, etc. So I think that legal documents are first and foremost to clarify in written word what the agreement is, so everybody is really on the same page and not just
Hmm.
says it on a Skype call or something like that.
Hmm.
And second of all, is there is some kind of serious character that it gets. It just gets a little more serious. People take it a little bit more serious, although everybody probably knows that they cannot be, really held to court with something like that or, something similar, but it gives it a more serious character. So that's why I wouldn't spend too much time thinking about it. I would actually just write something that's clear and simple, very easy to understand terms, short sentences, no fancy words, because that will get rid of any ambiguity you have in your language, anything that could lead to misunderstandings, and then just have it like a one page or so, and just have it signed and send that to each other, and you're good to go. I mean, obviously that's not. I don't want to give you any legal advice or anything like that, so don't hold me accountable if something happens to you. But that's what I do because I don't think you can actually protect yourself with these legal documents unless you have like a big budget to do so.
Yeah, so first of all, a JV isn't like a straight partnership. So you might even find some like templates online for JVs. The way Dave and I have done it is we just make it super clear what we're talking about. So in 6 months, after we've been really busy and we forget what we were talking about, we have it clearly in writing. Because a lot of times it's not like anything malicious. It's just you forget. I mean, literally. Um, and to David's point, what you're really gonna like chase this guy around Germany and try to like it's just not a realistic situation, I don't think. The way I've always handled it is when the joint. This is how Jesse and I are doing it for App Jetpack. We just have a one-page doc in writing, and when the business hits a certain number, we've decided, okay, we'll hire an attorney and draft up a real partnership. But partnerships are complicated because let's say, and attorneys know this, let's say Jesse's single right now, but during the partnership he gets married, then what happens? Like you have to have written plans for all this stuff, all these life events. If Jesse gets married and then gets hit by a bus and now it's me and his wife running the company, what happens? Partnerships are, expensive to start because you have to think of all those different scenarios, and it's just crazy. Now, a joint venture is a little different than that, but at the same time, I would just make sure it's super clear. And then, Ryan, for you, I would say get the revenue going into your account, your bank accounts, and then you can pay off your developer that way. Just that way, you're in control of your ethics, I guess you could say. But either way, I think the same way we talk about NDAs. I mean, if someone in India steals your design, what are you going to do? Like run around,
Yeah,
India
I
trying
think
to chase them down?
Ryan is asking a pretty interesting follow-up question, which is like, he says he's more curious about the split of profits versus time versus skills involved, and that's obviously very tricky. But it's I mean, in my partnerships that I had so far, and that's just you and Stefan, I just can't imagine partnering with someone who I'd have a hard time negotiating with. Like, with both Stefan and you, when we negotiate something, it's done within 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, because we both have the goal of, okay, we're going to do this. Like we have the conversation of, are we going to do this and can we do this? And we get excited about it. And then it's like, okay, so we're going to do this. Here's the split. But even for your and I split on Opt-in Mobile, we talked about milestones. And I think that's a good one to include is milestones because, well, it could take a developer way longer than you expect to get something done, and that should impact their equity take. Or there's lots of different ways to structure it, but the way I would do it, it's not like I'm going to what is it called, Sandy Hill Road, and like borrowing some of these guys' joint venture or contracts. I'm just going with what I think will help us get it done, and not to like position myself to get more money or anything like that. It's always like, how do we get this thing out and maximize for success? And I think if you put dates and milestones, man, 30 days goes by fast. So that will help clarify the relationship and the expectations. I think it sounds like Ryan isn't like super close with this guy, and so over communication is definitely recommended. And yeah, but other than that, it's not that big a deal until there's big money, because no one's really going to care. The problem is going to be that the expectations aren't met delivery-wise, and you can handle some of that through the milestones. And then if it does make a bunch of money, then you can go hire a real attorney and draft it out so it's so everyone's covered and comfortable. Because I'm David, you know this. I'm super against these kind of distractions. I hate them.
Yes.
It's let's go execute. And if just as much as a misunderstanding on a contract. It's like, okay, let's get the contract clarified so we don't have to think about it. That's how I like to treat my businesses and partnerships. I don't want to deal with, I mean, like I started a BVI company just because I don't want to have to deal with the ever-changing American tax code and, oh, what percent of my Mac did I use for personal use versus business use, and all these crazy things that the U.S. makes you do for tax write-offs. I just don't want to deal with it. So I'll pay some taxes, but it's a flat fee, and that's all I have to deal with. And it's just another distraction that I don't have to deal with. And I'm really big on that. Go make great products. Go make great services. Don't get distracted by all this kind of stuff. And one way that helps you not get distracted is making a super clear agreement with someone, and I would say with milestones.
Yeah, but regarding the revenue share and the skills versus time, I think if that's something that's very hard for you to figure out, then you should probably do more with that person outside of a partnership until you have a really good feel for that. That's at least my feel for that, because when you come to me and you present a deal and you say, hey, I have this opportunity, can you do these 3 milestones in like 30 days, get X percent of revenue or profit, I know you're not like internally calculating, okay, now I give him, I really want to give him 25%, but I'm going to say 20% because he's going to say 30%, and then I need to say, okay, but I need to still, and all that bullshit. There's none of that going on, and if I didn't know that I don't need to do these bullshit tricks and waste time with stuff like that. I think it wouldn't be a very efficient partnership, right? And same goes for time and skills, and we just really know what each other is good at, and so we can judge that by, we don't really take a lot of metrics into that. We just know, like, maybe if you really measured everything, you might get 1 or 2% different here or there, but we have a feel for what everybody's good at, right? And so
I would say you split the revenue or profit more based on business milestones. So if you've already proven the market, like you have people that have paid you before you have a product, and you've kind of proven that there's a market for your product that's willing to pay you for it, then that means that it's less risky for the developer. So then you probably deserve like a 60-40 split, let's say. If you already have a prototype and it's working and you've proven that you can get the actual thing working, that probably requires you've done more work, and so bringing a developer in at that point, maybe it's a 70-30 split. But I would treat those revenue or profit splits based on business milestones. And if you're nowhere, if it's like, hey, we're just starting out, if this guy's a rock star and he's going to 10x your chance of having a successful business, and go 50-50 and just be done with it,
Yeah, but it's exactly that, where you think, okay, how much does this impact the business? And it doesn't really matter whether someone is working 12 hours a day or 2 hours a day on your project. It matters on what impact it has on the business, and that's where you should come up with the percentage numbers, right?
And I'm realizing we're talking bigger ideas. So what Ryan might be trying to do is like, hey, I've got this idea for a quiz app, just like a $2,000 or $3,000 app, and so that's probably not worth 50-50. That would be worth, give him 20%, 10 to 20% for coding it for free for you, basically. If you're trying to get free development out of it, and the developer wants to partner with business guys that can go make apps, develop, create good apps, then I think 10 to 20% is probably the right number. It lowers your upside, but it reduces a lot of your risk. And if you can find someone that's good that will do that, go for it. But yeah, I think a 10 to 20 on a simple app that you could outsource and pay someone $25 an hour to do for you, that's probably the right number. But if it's a bigger project, like with David and I, we started at 50-50 and started going backwards from there. Like, okay, how much of this is proven? How much is da-da-da-da-da? And we took it that approach. But it just kind of depends on what kind of what kind of skills this guy's bringing to the table. All right,
Mhm.
what do you think? Another one? That was like a 10-minute discussion on that.
Lee's asking something about the press releases, and yeah,
We need a
maybe
lead. Where's the lead translator?
yeah, yeah, maybe you can get to what he's asking because for me that's a little hard to decipher.
Well, if we're talking about press release sites, I know there's PR Mac that has, I think it's free distribution and then extended distribution. I haven't had success with any press releases, and that's, I mean, your app really has to be something different. Um, I think,
Do you think like generally press releases is worth it?
I'm not sure if I've never developed an app that I thought was so cool and so unique and such a differentiator. Like it's not like I came up with a new podcast app, and it's not like I had a following like Marco does, right?
Hmm.
So I've never built an app that I thought was so cool that that press really. Now, Opt-in Mobile definitely qualifies for that, but we're not really going to need press. That's going to happen on its own. Yeah, so I don't really know how to answer that
Yeah,
question.
it's like Optimobile might not even be a bad example. So what he's trying what Lee's trying to do here is create an app with a large audience that is monetized via affiliate marketing. And I think what the numbers tell us, the recent reports tell us, etc., is that um, it's not a bad idea to start with Android. And if you do that, um, press and a launch and all that is not that important. And then you could do what I recently said on an episode, I think that's not yet released, is you can use the Google Play, the Android folks, as a soft release strategy where you release and you iterate and you make it better and you improve and you get more and more people on there and you optimize that. And once you have figured out, how to best, the best version of your app, then you bring that to iOS and then you do your launch, but then you have some following already, then you have some press already, and then you can, do all that push on the iOS where it it counts, where it counts when you release.
Well,
Whether
also, if it's Android, there's more Android devices, and if he's not monetizing via in-app purchases or something, and it's through affiliates, more eyeballs matter. So Android would probably be better anyways, right?
that's right, but what I'm saying is on Android, the release isn't that important. So um, why worry about press releases so much? I think it's honestly, I think it's more like feeding the resistance. You should probably just launch and worry about the press later.
Hey, what's the name of the company that Peter Shankman, the guy in the DC, built? Something like it's connecting the press and people.
I haven't seen that actually.
You know what I'm talking about. I'm just glitching out on the name. But if we really help a reporter out,
Oh,
Haro.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, if if I were really wanting to get press and invest in that, and I really thought that if I had a new email app and I wanted to tons of users would be great, right? Of course. And it was worth the time getting that out there, then I would probably be on Help a Reporter Out and trying to develop relationships with different reporters and trying to be available for different stories and that kind of thing. I'm not sure that the press release where you just blow it out, it's almost becomes like an email blast. I don't know. If I were a reporter, I don't think I would take that all that seriously, but I don't know. That's another question we should have asked Dan. But yeah, I think if it were me, I wouldn't. I might do a press release just so I had it, so I had like some press kit available for any interested reporter. But I would be on Haro and making sure that I was connecting with people that had stories or interests or questions about whatever my app was doing. All
Okay.
right, let's keep going.
Uh,
What else we got?
Got any more questions from the chat? No, not yet. Here we go.
Did you know we're like a minute ahead of the chat?
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, right?
Yeah.
Where we're finishing on a question and haven't asked yet.
And that's becoming a bigger question, is that affiliate question, apps with affiliates. It'd be interesting to hear from Mark, it's Mark, right, from Vision Mobile,
Mhm.
what his perspective of that business model is, because there's so many business models, or let me say it like this, there's so many ways to monetize an app that aren't nearly remotely even close to being mainstream or being large, and
Mhm.
affiliates are one of them. And it just, the fact that you can connect Amazon affiliates to a mobile app, and I mean, it just becomes like a lot of the models that work for websites could work for mobile apps, and people aren't doing them. Like email collection, I mean, that was just an opportunity sitting out there. Like, why isn't anyone doing this? So I'll be really curious. We have a couple people in the Facebook group that are listeners that are playing around with affiliate apps, apps that make money by um, showing products and people buying the products. So it'll be interesting to see how they do with monetization and what kind of new challenges they uncover, because I think that's another one of these business models that, while it's not super proven as far as I know, it seems like it's just right there for the taking. Um, yeah, so that will be a fun one to follow, and hopefully some of the listeners can share their experiences. And I know Lee's talking a little bit about that, but then so is Kaylee and some others. So
Yeah, definitely interesting to follow that. And yeah, it's going to evolve, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about business to business models, but this affiliate thing is another one where you can monetize. Um, we had who was that? Um, that guy who did the not reports but polls.
oh yeah,
So that's another.
Alan Gier, right?
Yes, that's another one where I haven't really seen that in the wild yet, so I'm curious to have him back on and ask him how that's doing.
I think
Um,
he's been pivoting like crazy.
hmm Yeah, but
So
there's like a lot of um, possible monetization methods that we
yeah,
haven't discovered yet. So
yeah, I really think that it's hard for people interested in mobile to identify some of these opportunities without going through the experience of putting apps in the App Store. Now, you could have a role at a company that's very mobile focused and have an insight via that experience, but just working with mobile apps and having conversations and masterminds and on the podcasts and stuff, like I truly believe there's a new opportunity almost every day with mobile, and you almost just have to be in it to be seeing all these opportunities. Um, something that you could build and grow for years, and so it doesn't all have to be, hey, I built this new game or built this new consumer app, right? And like David said, we'll get better at sharing our thoughts there.
yeah, um, Ryan is asking if affiliate marketing could tie into opt-in mobile, and I think it's like worth clarifying what the value proposition of opt-in mobile is.
I mean, it certainly could, but I think the general thinking for most content marketers, or not most, but a lot of content marketers, is they want to sell their own products. Like, why would they be selling other products? But certainly, opt-in mobile could be, you could be collecting emails and selling other people's products. It's the exact same model as if you're a content marketer on the web. The trend that we noticed was that people enjoy spending time in apps, and so just because you have a mobile website and you're available if they decide to click that Chrome thing and go search for you, it's just not the same as having an app where they can interact with you via their app, or they can
Yeah.
discover you in the App Store. So I think it's more for people selling their own products and services, but it certainly could be the same model as other content marketers have, where it's like, hey, this is a gardening app, and we talk all about gardening, and then you sell other people's tools and hoses and books and stuff. That's a terrible example, but that makes sense, I think. So yeah, I mean, it could. It's not something that our first problem we're trying to solve is get users really engaged and make email collection super easy and measurable. So
Yeah, so first and foremost, from a user standpoint, OptinMobile is about giving the user the ability to follow their, um, whatever they are a fan of in one app and interact with that person or that brand. And in the MVP, one of the way to do the interaction part is collect their email address and then follow up with them on that channel. But certainly you could have many different kind of um, pop-ups or links or messages in there that can carry all kinds of payloads. Just doesn't need to be a email opt-in, but that's what the MVP is about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe people are saying, look, I usually sell this on my site, but I also have this stuff, and they'll ask us for it. So, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where this thing can go. I mean, just in our building of it, we're seeing how many directions it can go. I think we're probably a week away from saying, okay, we're out of beta and we're opening this thing up for the next 30 people or something. So whatever that would be, a soft launch. But yeah, we're kind of moving right along. So it'll be interesting to see where this thing goes. But we have like the immediate direction we're trying to take it, and after that, we'll just kind of listen and let it take us.
Yeah.
Is that it, man? What do you think? I mean, we have some more things going on in the Facebook group, but it's kind of like if you're in the Facebook group, it's really redundant because we're like reading the things that we've already answered in the Facebook group. So, I mean, that might be it.
Yeah, unless we have like really quick questions here, I think we have a website to fix and
Yeah.
and we need to ship OptinMobile. So, the final words maybe on the OptinMobile discussion here is that's all interesting, but right now we are in focus mode trying to ship this first MVP. And
But that's the beautiful thing about this stuff is, yeah, if you can get something out there that people are buying and using, then who knows? Yeah, man, we could totally have like this affiliate offering or something. We don't know, but if we didn't have opt-in mobile, we wouldn't have anything. Like we wouldn't even be able to play
yes,
with the. So like so many businesses you hear about, they start as one thing and end up something else. We have no idea, but we know that if we solve this first problem, we can then talk to 150 people about what their other problems are and see if we can't solve those too. And yeah, it just reminds me how fun it is to, I get stressed out because all of a sudden everything's happening all at once, but
yeah.
it's fun to have a lot of things going on because I mean we're learning so much, and yeah, it's just fun to be doing cool stuff.
Okay.
So there's the words of wisdom: do cool stuff. But yeah. So guys, thanks for joining us live. Yeah, we're a little bit ahead of you guys, so we'll stick here on the chat a little bit, but we'll close down this weekly. We went 48 minutes. Jeez. Yeah, so next week we have some really cool topics, I think. We nerd out a little bit, and we also talk about some of the impact that Android is having. The latest numbers for Android is insane, and we'll include that in the newsletter that should come out Monday. So when you get that episode, you should know what we're talking about. We talk a little bit about reskinning and what to do after you do the first 6 months, 3 months of reskinning, and what specifically reskinning is. And then we talk about the numbers that came out where Apple and other tablet manufacturers really got trounced this last quarter, and something that was growing at 60% is now growing at 10%, and for Apple it actually reduced. So I think we have a really interesting week ahead because this was an interesting week of news, and so I hope you'll listen to all those episodes and then join us on the next ABP Weekly.
All right. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys.